Merry Christmas, everyone. This is Bryan from the Biblical History Center. Just want to welcome you to the wonderful view we've got here at the top of our garden. We've got our manger tour still going on here at the BHC. Some really good stuff talking about the Nativity and the birth of Christ. And towards the end of the video, I want to show you guys what this stuff is right here, because that's not a normal part of our museum. So we're under construction on something, and I've gotten permission to show you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of what's going on. So can't wait to show you guys. But today, the topic of today's video is we're going to be talking about 3 misconceptions that a lot of people actually have about the Nativity or about the birth of Christ. That some people think they know the story pretty well, but you might be surprised. Might surprise you with some. So let's go ahead on down and check it out. All right, come on. All right, sit you down right there. I'll tell you what, I picked an excellent day for doing this because it's currently like 70 degrees outside, and it's the 6th, December 6th. I swear I'm moving down to Georgia. The winters, they're a little bit confused, and I've heard it's going to get into the 80s next week. And last night, a couple days ago, it was down in the 30s. Anyway, I digress. What I want to talk about is this thing behind here, and this is actually our stable display. This is where we, a similar facsimile of where Jesus would have been born. As we go through that, we eventually make our way to the Magi, and a nice, pretty thing for our nativities is you see Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, and the 3 wise men hanging out just in the corners or in the wings, given their presents of gold, frankincense, and more. Yeah, you know what I mean. Well, unfortunately, church tradition and from what we know of history and our best guess, actually from the biblical text, Matthew talks about how Herod, once the Magi have skipped out on him, was able to ascertain roughly where Jesus would be and the age that Jesus would be. And he actually kills all of the 2-year-olds and younger within this region. Well, why would he kill all the 2-year-olds if Jesus was just born? Well, the wise men didn't actually visit him as an infant, as a newborn. They actually didn't show up for a good 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years. So Jesus was already in his toddlerhood by this point. I always like to joke with our guests, imagine Jesus as a toddler in his terrible 2s. Almost feels heretical, isn't it? Now, there's a fact that you may not have known about the Nativity, that the fact that the Magi did not actually show up for about 2 years. Another interesting thing that you may not know about the Magi, and this is kind of a little bonus, is how many Magi were there? If you answered 3, well, you might be correct. And the reason I say you might be correct is because we don't actually know. We don't actually know for certain how many Magi there were. Now, it's often attributed to 3 because you got the 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Well, in the Greek, the term Magi is actually the Greek word magoi. Might have butchered that. And it's plural. We don't get 2, 3, 40. We don't know. The word is plural, so it could have meant 2 Magi, 2 wise men. It could have meant 60 to 100. We genuinely don't know. But the prevailing theory in church history comes down to the 3 wise men. So it's not incorrect to say there were 3 wise men. I personally believe there were at least 3 wise men, but Scripture does talk about the plural. So there's your freebie to today. We don't know exactly how many wise men there actually were. So we are going to move on over on this way. Follow me. All right, gonna set you down right there to show you this thing that we got right here. This is our millstone. Now, this is actually something you're going to be grinding up all of your olives. Now, the reason I bring this up in regards to the Nativity is to push this thing around, you're going to need one of a couple things. You're going to need a young man or a Samson, or ideally, you're going to want a donkey. Now, in the nativity scene, there's generally 3 companions seen coming from Nazareth all the way to Bethlehem. You got Mary, and then you have Joseph, and then you have the donkey. Well, church tradition and church art, well, they get a lot of things wrong, and this one's probably included on that list. Joseph probably didn't have a donkey. He wasn't rich enough, and we actually know he wasn't rich enough because after Jesus was born, he took sacrifices. On the 8th day, he took sacrifices for the cleanliness rituals of his newborn baby Jesus. Well, part of that ritual is you're supposed to take a lamb and sacrifice it at the temple. The Lord is good, and in Levitical law, the Lord knew not everyone was going to be able to afford a lamb. He knew that not everyone was monetarily blessed enough to be able to afford a lamb, because even nowadays, a lamb can get kind of expensive. So he made provisions for that. So the poor man's version of the offering was actually 2 turtle doves. You take 2 turtle doves, pay for them, and sacrifice them there at the temple. Now, if Joseph had a donkey, he would have sold it in order to buy a lamb, because a donkey was considered a luxury item, because you're not going to milk a donkey, you're not going to kill it for its meat. What you're going to be using it is for stuff like this. You're going to be using it as your muscle. And it's going to be plowing your fields and milling your grain and milling your olives and grinding up all of your olives. So I don't know if any of you have seen I think it's the 2008 The Nativity story with Oscar Isaacs. Well, they kind of pay homage to this, because Joseph didn't actually own one in the movie. Oscar Isaacs' character, he played Joseph. He didn't own one. Mary's dad actually let them borrow it. And sure, that's possible, I guess, but that's kind of like letting your best friend borrow your Ferrari for a road trip to California. Not impossible, but rather unlikely. So we believe that Joseph he didn't have a donkey on the long trek. So you know what that means. Mary had to take that entire trip on her own 2 feet. And that would have really stank, especially when they made it to Bethlehem, and especially when they made it to the inn. So there is unknown number 3 then. Joseph probably didn't own a donkey. And speaking of inns and speaking of innkeepers, that actually segues really nicely to the third and last thing you might not know about the nativity scene. So I want to head on over this way if you'll follow me. Set you down right about there, because this is our house display. This is where the average Jewish family, and sometimes even Roman family, is going to live. Kind of a peasant place made out of rocks and possible bricks. But the thing about this place is, if a young man in this house wants to get married, he's going to move a long way away. About 10 feet, he's going to build his own house just adjacent to his father's house, and then his son's going to build his house right next to that, and it's eventually the family clan is going to spread out into these houses of many rooms. Now, the Romans actually had a name for these vast, sprawling houses. They called them insula. As a matter of fact, I live in a modern insula. It's basically an apartment building. It's a bunch of tightly packed people living in a large building. Now, the word for insula is actually Latin, the Vulgate Latin for island. So, get these big families, these strangers living in a small area, you can see the comparison, an island. So when Joseph comes home, he comes home to his family's inn, Sula. Joseph and Mary didn't stay at a Motel 6, Hilton Garden Inn, Sheraton, Biltmore, what have you. They're not staying at what you and I would consider basically a hotel, even though those type of establishments did exist. They didn't stay at a place like that. Joseph was coming home. So when Joseph came home to Bethlehem, they would have tried to stay at Joseph's family's inn, Sula, because that is where we get the word inn from. So yeah, there's 3 things that you might not have known about the nativity story as I walk through our garden here. Yeah, really fascinating stuff. I'll be completely honest, when I first came to this place, I didn't know a lot about that either. So really cool stuff. We do still have our manger tours still going on here at the Biblical History Center, going through the birth of Jesus, birth in the stable and in a manger, and we go all through the history of that as we go through our tours. Want to thank you guys for watching the channel. I'd ask please like and subscribe, and let us know what you think. Did I surprise you today with a little bit of our knowledge, or are you a complete biblical scholar and did you know 100% of that? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. As I said earlier, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek. We got something going on here at the garden. All the way up here at the top, some construction going on. I want to hear what you guys think. What do you think this is? Kind of a concrete bunker of some kinds? I know the answer, and I know if you'll get it right, but I'm not allowed to say at the moment, so stick around. The announcement will probably come around sometime during the new year. So Merry Christmas, you guys. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Stay sane and just remember the reason for this season. Merry Christmas, everybody. See you in a bit.